Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Welcome to the fourth training workshop in AppSap 2022 workshop series. HUAWEI AppSap 2022 contest has started already, and these training workshops will teach you how to integrate HMS kits and join the contest. And in today's workshop, the topic will be HUAWEI Account Kit. Now, let's go through the 4 parts of today's workshop. First, I'm going to give a brief introduction to AppSap contest. I know some of you have watched our previous workshop videos, so I will keep this part short and quick to avoid repeating the same thing over and over again. Next, I will be introducing HMS Account Kit, which is an HMS capability that lets you add a sign-in function to your app. The third part will be a coding section where I'm going to be coding live from scratch an Android app integrated with Account Kit and demonstrate all the steps that you need to follow to integrate Account Kit. Last but not least, I'll try to answer your questions. So throughout this workshop, if you get any question, if at any point or any moment of the video a question pops up in your head, just write it in the live chat. Okay, so AppSap is Huawei's global app innovation contest that rewards developers with skills, and it motivates everybody to develop apps with consistent user experience, and it inspires them to bring new ideas to the mobile apps industry. Huawei will reward more than 20 developers in 8 categories with money prizes that range from $5,000 to $15,000. For example, we have the best game award, where 3 game developers will win each $15,000. And we have the best Arabic app reward, where 3 Arabic app developers will win $10,000 each. We also have the Tech Women's Award, where a female developer will win $10,000. Aside from money prizes, contestants will also have a chance to win App Gallery promotional and development resources, as well as incentives for integrating HMS Machine Learning Kit. This contest has already started. The registration opened in June 24th. There's still plenty of time for everybody to join the contest. It's going to close by October 9th. On October 10th, the preliminary expert review will start. And on November 8th, the public review will take place, where some public figures, CEOs and engineers will review the apps and announce the top 30 apps. And then by December, we're going to have the finals and award ceremony, where we are going to give the rewards to the winners. To join the contest and to be eligible to win, all entries must meet 2 requirements. The first one is that your app has to be published on Huawei App Gallery. App Gallery is Huawei's proprietary app store, just like Google Play Store or Apple App Store. It has more than 600 million monthly active users. So by releasing on App Gallery, you give your app exposure to a lot of people. The second requirement will be integrating HMS into your app. So HMS means Huawei Mobile Services. You'll have to integrate its different capabilities and services into your app. And the more SDKs you integrate, the bigger your chance to win in this contest. Okay, now let's start with the main topic of this workshop, which is Account Kit. So Account Kit is one of many HMS capabilities that can help you improve the user experience of your app on Huawei devices by providing an easy and quick way to sign in to your app using the user's Huawei ID or Huawei account. Now let's go through the different features of Account Kit. First, it is quick. Account Kit lets you give your users a way to quickly sign in just by tapping a button or by scanning QR code. Account Kit is secure. It supports two-factor authentication. It also is fully compliant with the GDPR and different data and privacy laws and regulations. Account Kit works on a wide range of devices like smartphones, tablets, and smart screens. And it has a wide global coverage where we have 900 million Huawei users in 190 different countries and regions, supporting more than 70 languages. Okay, enough with that. Now let's go ahead and learn how to integrate Account Kit. So the integration will happen in 5 steps. First, you will need to register and apply for Huawei developer account. Registration is completely free, unlike other platforms. The next step will be creating an app on Huawei App Gallery, and you have to create an Android project or use your existing app to configure it. Then third step will be integrating Account Kit SDK and invoking the different APIs that it offers. The fourth step will be testing your app to make sure it works, and Account Kit requires Huawei device. And if you do not have a Huawei device, Huawei smartphone, or a tablet, then you can use our cloud debugging service where you get to have access to remote devices on the cloud or inside of Android Studio. So you can test in those devices in real time and get logs. The fifth step will be publishing your app on App Gallery, which is 100% free, but we're not going to do that. So for this workshop, we are going to skip the first and the last step. So we're going to create an app and configure it. We're going to write the code, then we're going to test it. Now let's go through the steps that we're going to follow in details. First, we're going to go to App Gallery and create a project. Then we're going to go inside of our developer console project, and we will configure the app by adding the name, package name, the fingerprint certificate, and then we have to download a configuration file called agconnectservices.json. Next, we're going to take that file and place it inside the app folder. Then we have to add the Huawei Maven repository to the project level build.gradle or into settings.gradle. Next, we have to add the App Gallery Gradle plugin class path and also apply the plugin in the app level build.gradle. Then we add the Account Kit SDK, add the required permission to Android manifest, and synchronize the Gradle. This will download all the necessary SDKs, and we will be ready to invoke the different APIs that Account Kit offers. But before we go into that, before we move into the code, let's first learn about the how Account Kit works and the different authorization flows. So for Huawei Account Kit, it has 2 authorization flows. The first one called authorization code. You would go with this flow if you have a server side. The way it works is that your app first integrate Account Kit SDK, then it will send an authorization request to Account Kit. Account Kit then will show an authorization page to the user where the user has to grant your app access to their Huawei ID. Then once the user grants your app or gives it permission, Account Kit will retrieve the user's or it will get an authorization code from Huawei Cloud. It will return it to your app, then you will send it to your own server. And then from your server, you will send the authorization code to obtain tokens. And then once you get the tokens, you can use them to request the user profile. So this one is a little complicated. It requires server-side development. But the second authorization flow is called ID token, which is much simpler. First, your app will send an authorization request to Account Kit. Account Kit then will show an authorization page where the user have to authorize your app to access their Huawei ID. Then Account Kit will communicate with Huawei server to obtain an ID token and the user profile, which then will be returned to your app. However, the thing about this flow is that it's a little risky, so you need to make sure that you verify the data that you get, because This is all happening on client side. So on a router device, let's say someone can hack your app, or they can simply replace system apps and then send fake data pretending that they are Account Kit. Now let's see how to implement the second authorization flow, which is ID token. So first, you will need to display the Huawei sign-in button, and this is provided by Account Kit. Next, we have to create an account auth params. So we're going to use the class account auth params helper, and then we have to call the method set ID token to say that it's the second authorization flow that does not require server-side integration. And then we're going to call the method set email. Email and phone number are sensitive information, so we have to ask for them explicitly. In the second step, we're going to create an account auth service by using the class account auth manager. We're going to call the method get service. You pass a context and the auth params that we created in the previous step. Last but not least, we show the authorization page by invoking the method start activity for result. We pass the intent that we get from the service by calling the method get sign-in intent. Then we specify a request code. This will show an authorization page to the user. Then they decide to either grant your app permission or refuse it. And we will receive the result in the method on activity result. It takes 3 parameters: request code, result, and the data. So first, we want to make sure that the request that we received is the one we sent. So we test for the request code. Once we do that, then we're gonna get the result from the parameter data. We're gonna use the class account auth manager, and we're gonna call the method parse auth result from intent. We pass in the data. This will return a task. We test if it's successful. Then we can call the method get result of that task to give us an object of type auth account, which contains all the user information that we need. So this is the full implementation, and this is what we're going to do in today's workshop. After you sign the user in, you will want to give them a way to sign out, and that's also provided by Account Kit. So you will simply call the method sign out of the class service. This is an asynchronous operation, so you have to set a listener. So we're going to call the method add on complete listener. And then inside of the method on complete, you're going to just clear any information, any user information that you saved, and you will then redirect the user to the home page or the login page. In our case, we're going to take the user to the back to the login page. Aside from sign out, there is another method called cancel authorization, and what this does is that once you call this method, the next time the user tries to sign in, they will have to grant your app authorization once again. And this is useful to protect their privacy. So when you implement this, you might want to cancel the authorization once a month or so on. That depends on your app. So this is the demo that we are going to create shortly. The app will consist of 2 screens. The first one will be the sign-in screen. All we do is just show a sign-in button. It says sign in with Huawei ID, and that one is provided by Account Kit. You do not need to design it, but you can still customize it. Once you click that button, it's going to show the authorization page. This screen is provided by Account Kit. You do not need to design it. In this screen, the user will decide to either allow your users access to their Huawei ID or not. And once you receive the result and the user gave your app permission, then we are going to redirect them to a second screen where we're going to show their profile. So we're going to show their profile picture, email, and the ID token. We're going to also have a button in the second screen, which will take the user back to the login screen. So this is for the presentation. So this app is going to be very basic. It's just to show you how to integrate Account Kit. We're going to start from scratch. I'm not going to skip any step so that you'll get a better idea on how to integrate Account Kit, and then you can apply this to pretty much any other HMS kit. Okay, now I'm going to switch the screen, and we're going to start working on the app. start by visiting developer.huawei.com. So this start coding. We're going to go into our directory. We do not have any activity. So let's go ahead and create the first activity. I'm going to come down here, activity. I'm going to start with a empty activity. Here, this is going to be the authorization where we're going to authorize, we're going to ask the user to give us access to the Huawei ID. And then there will be a second page where we are going to show the user profile. So I'm going to call this auth activity. And I want this to be the launcher activity, which means the first activity that will be started once the user taps the icon on the home page. Click finish, will generate the activity. So generate the auth activity right here, okay. All right, now we're gonna start with the design. So I'm gonna keep it simple. Let's open, let's go to layout and then activity auth. So this is our screen. I'm gonna, so for the login button, it comes with account kit. It's called Huawei ID, Huawei ID auth button. So I'm gonna create it. For the size, I'm gonna do wrap content. Let it take as much space as it needs. So this is how the button looks. By default, there is an icon and there is the word sign in with Huawei ID. I'm not going to change that. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to align it in the center of our screen. Again, this is just demonstration, but for you, you're free to play with the design. And you can design your own button, but make sure that it complies with Huawei's design guidelines, because you're using Huawei's trademark copyrighted logo, so you have to follow Huawei's guidelines. So here I'm going to say, let's say, continue with Huawei, kind of saying that, hey, there is another option, which is Huawei sign-in, because usually you would want to add this to like your existing login page, which contains like traditional email and password or other forms of login using social media. Anyways, let's go back to the code, and I want to give this an ID, which is Huawei ID auth button. Right, I'm happy with the design. We have the ID here that we're going to use. Now let's close the design and start writing code. We're going to be doing two things. First, we have to initialize account kit. So I'm going to create a function called init account kit. And then I'm going to create another function called init UI to initialize our UI. All right, let's start with the first function. Here we have to initialize account kit. Now we're going to create the auth params, and we're going to use the class account auth params helper. So we're going to create an instance of this, and I'm going to pass in a default params, which is the default one, which is yeah, so default auth request params. If you hold control and you click on it, it takes you to the definition of this. So basically this one creates an auth param helper using ID and profile. So these two will give us the user's profile, like their name and their profile picture and so on. There are other pieces of information that we have to request explicitly. These are the sensitive information, which are the email and phone number. So here I'm just going to say email because I don't want phone number. Now to specify that this is the ID token authorization flow, I'm going to say set ID token. And then we have to call the method create to return an object of type account auth params. I'm going to store this in a variable. I'm going to call it params. Simple. Then we have to create an instance of auth service. So we're going to do account auth manager dot get service. We have to pass in a context, which is this activity, and then the params that we created in the previous step. And I'm going to store this in a variable I'm going to call service, or let's call it account service. So this one will be used so many places, so I better have this as a global variable. I'm going to create it here as a late init variable called account service of type account auth service. All right, now that is all for initializing account kit. Let's go ahead and initialize the UI. So I'm going to create a method initialize UI. Here we are going to first get reference to our HUAWEI ID button. So I'm going to call the method find view by ID. Should return HUAWEI ID auth button, and its ID is r.id.huawei ID auth button. Here, all we need to do is just set click listener to listen for clicks. So I'm just going to call the method set click listener set on click listener. And once the button is clicked, we're simply going to call a method that says sign in with HUAWEI. So let's go ahead and create this method down here. It's going to be a function sign in with HUAWEI. So here, what we need to do is launch the authorization page. And we do that by calling the method start activity for result. Oops, start activity for result. All right, now we have to pass in an intent, and we get this from account service. I'm going to do account service dot sign in intent. And we have to provide a request code. And I'm going to create here a constant variable. I'm going to call it const value. Let's say HUAWEI sign in request code, which is going to have a value of use it here. Okay, now this method will launch an activity, which is the authorization page, where the user will give your app or authorize it, or it will grant it permission to access their HUAWEI ID and email. Once they grant your app, you will receive the result in a method called onActivityResult. So go ahead and override this method onActivityResult. The first thing we do is we make sure that this, oops, activity results. Okay. So we may receive results that did not come from account kit. So first of all, we need to make sure that the request code matches. So if request code equals the request code that we specified in the method sign in with HUAWEI. Now, if that's the case, what we need to do now is to get the data from this intent, and there is a class that's going to help us with it, which is the account auth manager. I'm going to call the method parse auth result from intent and pass in the intent, which is data. This is going to return a task. Let's call it result of type task, because it's asynchronous. So we can do two things. We can either call the add on complete or on success, but for me, I'm going to just say if result.is successful. Nope. Yeah, so I'm going to say result dot on add on complete listener. And then here we're going to write an if statement, make sure that the task is successful. If it's successful, we are going to extract the result, not extract, but we're going to get the user HUAWEI ID from the result task. And if it fails, then we simply show a toast, pass in a context, the context is activity, and then I'm just going to say authorization failed, and I'm going to also print the exception. So it.exception print stack trace. So this it refers to the task. So let's rename this. Call it task. more sense. It's better. It's more readable. Now let's go ahead and get the object. So I'm going to say account equals result dot result. This will return an object of type auth account. And auth account contains everything that we need: email, display name, the avatar, access token, and so on. So here, before we move on to creating a second activity and navigating to the second activity where we show user's profile, show a toast that's going to say welcome. That's all. Can you spell it? No. Good. Okay. So this is the first step. It's very easy. You initialize account kit, you initialize the UI, and you listen for clicks. Whenever the button is clicked, you start an activity for result. You get the intent from the account service. You specify a request code. This will launch an authorization page. The user will give your app authorization, and then your app will be resumed. And then the method on activity result will be invoked. You will receive the data inside of intent. You will use account auth manager to parse the data, check if the task is successful, extract the information. Here, we are technically done signing the user in. Now we want to show that, show the user, show their profile and the data that we received from HUAWEI server. So let's go ahead and create a new activity. It's going to be empty, and this is going to have a name, let's say profile activity. Yeah, click finish. So this is the profile activity. Let's go to activity profile, and I'm going to design it real quick, real simple. So we are going to have an image view where we're going to show the user's profile. Place it in the center, get some padding, some margin. I'm going to fix its size to 128 by 128. Okay. Then I'm going to have a text view where I'm going to show, let's say, the user's name or email. So I'm going to call it email. Okay. For the text appearance, we're going to select body too, so it's black and a little bold. All right. And I'm going to add another text view where we're going to show, let's show the token. So the token is what you're going to send to the backend if you want to like get the user's information from your own backend. Just give it style of just small. Okay, and this one, I'm going to give it name ID token. Okay, yep, that's pretty much it. Let's just keep it simple. And for the image view, I'm going to call it avatar. Okay. And so this photo is just preview. It only shows inside of Android Studio, but I want to give it an actual kind of a placeholder. So let's do source. And with Account Kit, you will get HUAWEI logo. You can find it with the name. Just type in HWID, it will show up. And then we're going to select the normal one, and you will see HUAWEI logo there. This is part of Account Kit. You can use this whenever you're designing your own button and you want to show HUAWEI branding. Yeah, this is enough for the profile activity. Now let's go back here. Okay, so here, just like we did in the first activity, we are going to we're going to just initialize the UI. That's all. Yes, important. Here we show the user information, but where do we get that from? We have to pass this information from the first activity to the second one. And for that, we're going to pass everything inside of an intent, right? So we're going to go into auth activity. So here, once we, so here to go to profile activity, we have to call the method start activity. Then we have to create an intent where we pass in the context and the class that we want to navigate to, which is profile activity. And we have to use class.java. You know what? I'm going to move this to a separate function for ease of readability. I'm going to call it navigate to profile activity. create down here. Function, navigate to profile activity. And so here we have to pass the account that we received to the second activity. And here I'm going to call the method apply. Gives us a reference to the intent. And here we're going to simply say put extra. And here we have to add that account as an extra to the intent. So later we can recover it or get it inside of profile activity. I'm gonna go ahead and pass that account as a variable. We're gonna create here a new argument or parameter. Which is gonna be of type auth account. And input extra text to variables. First is the key and then the value, which is account. But for the key, I'm gonna create it inside of profile activity. It's gonna be a constant. I'm gonna call it extra HUAWEI account. It's gonna be a string that says just HUAWEI account. So here, let's use that key, and we're gonna use the same key later to retrieve this account. So this is it for the navigation. Now in profile activity here, I'm gonna add another method that says get HUAWEI account from intent. Create that function. Okay. Now we're gonna say intent. This is part of the app combat activity. This is the intent that we sent before, and we're gonna say get parcelable extra, and then we have to pass in the key that we used before. So if you go back to auth activity and we go to auth account class, we go to abstract auth account, you can see that this implements parcelable. So you can easily send it, add it to an event as an extra or put it in a bundle. Let's go to profile. Then for this, the type is going to be auth. Oops. It's going to be auth account. So it's going to parse it and it's going to cast this parcelable object into auth account. And we want to save this into an object that we're going to call account. Because we're going to use this when we initialize the UI, I'm going to create this as a global variable. It's going to be a nullable variable because you might not receive anything. So I want to say account of type auth account, and it's going to be nullable. Default value will be null. Okay. So now we get the account from the intent. Now let's go ahead and initialize our UI. Here we have three things. We have the avatar, which is an image view. So let's call the method find view by ID, get the reference to all our profile views. Then we have the email, so call find view by ID. It's going to be of type text view, and the ID is order_id.email. We're going to do the same thing for token, find view by ID. The type of the view is text view, and the ID is token. Perfect. Next, we have to populate the email and token fields, and we have to load the image into avatar. So let's say account question mark dot let. So what this says is just execute this block of code if account is not null, right? So here we have it. It is our account object, but for better readability, I'm going to just call it account. So here, first of all, we have to set the email. So I'm going to set email.text equals, let's say email, and then access the email that's inside of account object, like so. And then we have to set the token. So I'm going to say token.text, token colon, and then account.token. Yes, ID token. So now we populated the text views. Now let's load the profile picture. For this, it is highly recommended that you use a library like Picasso or Glide. These are great because they handle caching and they handle different network conditions, and they have optimization. They let you do animation and transitions and so on. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use the built-in tools that's part of the Java language to load the image. So First of all, not everybody has an avatar or a profile picture. So I'm going to say if account.avatar URI string is it's null or blank, we're not going to load the photo because it's not there. So I'm going to just reverse that. And here we have to load the profile picture. So inside this block, we know that the user has a profile picture, so we can load it. Here I'm going to call the create an instance of class URL. This is part of java.net package. Here we have to pass in a URL as a string. So we're going to get that from the account object, which is avatar URI string. Then I'm going to call the method open stream. So this is going to return an input stream object. I'm going to store this in a variable called stream. Next, there's a class called bitmap factory where it takes an input stream and it gives us a bitmap. So let's say decode stream and you pass in this stream. All right, so literally 2 lines of code and we can just load the data from this server, from this link. Now, because this is a network operation, this is our URL and this is a stream loading the data from server. So it's going to block our app and it might throw an exception. So we have to do this in a separate thread, in a background thread. So let's create a thread, right? And we're going to have this code inside of that thread. And let's not forget calling the method start. This way we'll start. This thread is going to be separate. It's not going to block the UI. And once this network operation is finished, it's going to give us a bitmap. So we want to take this bitmap and show it to the user. So we can say avatar.set bitmap image bitmap, and then we're going to pass in the bitmap like so. But still, there's another mistake. We are inside of thread, and because now avatar is a UI element, we're trying to manipulate the UI from a background thread. We're not allowed to do that on Android. So we have to call in a method that's called run on UI thread. This is part of activity. And what this does is that whatever code is inside this block will be executed on the main thread or the UI thread. Good. Good. So this is it for loading the picture. We're going to keep it nice and simple. And we are technically done. We can try testing the app. I think I forgot one step, which is still forgot one step, which is the authorization or fingerprint. So if we scroll down here, we have the SHA-256 certificate fingerprint. If we execute the code now, we're going to get an error, non-authorization error, which means our app will not be authorized to access HUAWEI server. To solve that, we're going to go to build. We're going to generate a signing key. I'm going to choose APK. You do not need to do that really. This is what we need. This is the most important window. We have to go here. Click, create new. Here we have to generate new key store. This is all mentioned here in the documentation page. If you scroll down, you can see it right here. Generate and assign a certificate. So first you will need to generate a sign-in certificate, and then you will generate the fingerprint from that certificate. So here, let's go ahead and create the sign-in certificate or the key store. I'm going to navigate to my project directory by clicking this icon. I'm going to call the certificate, the store key store. Hit OK. Password. I'm going to pick something simple like ABCD1234. The key store or the key alias name is going to be the default one. Here, I'm just going to fill this randomly real quick. All right, click OK. Next, I'm going to just say cancel. I don't want to go through that. We don't want to generate APKs. Just create this key store. It's right down here. Now we have to add this to our project. You can do it manually, or you can just be smart. Go to project structure. Then from here, you will go to build variants, and nope, you're going to go to modules, app, you're going to go to signing configs. Here, we're going to create a new signing config. I'm going to keep the name debug, star file. We're going to pick the key store that we just generated. That's in our project. Keystore.jks. The password was ABCD1234. Same thing for the key, and the alias by default is key0. I'm going to click apply. This will generate the key store for us, and it will also sync the project. If we go to app level build.gradle, you can see that it generated this code. Now what we want to do is apply this new signing config to all of our build types. And I'm going to do that from the project structure again. So here, I'm going to go to build variants for release. I'm going to scroll down to signing config, and we're going to create, select the one that we just created. We're going to do the same thing for the debug build variant. Select debug and hit apply OK. And now you can see that it applied the signing config. So signing config for this build type is coming from signing configs, this block.debug, this one. So we're using the same for both release and debug, but not recommended. This is just a demo. But for you would have like separate signing config for each build type. So let's give Gradle some time to sync. And then we're going to generate the fingerprint. Here it says use the key tool, and you would need to run this command in a terminal, but we're not going to do that. So to generate the, there's an easier way. Inside of Android Studio, go to the right toolbar right here, click on Gradle, then go to Tasks folder, go to Android, double click on Sign In Report. It will generate the fingerprint from the specified signing config. So here, as you can see, this is the key store that we specified, and it's giving us the whole report. We have 3 entries. They're all the same, so we just copy one of them, which is like, let's say this is it. It's SHA256. Okay, so I'm going to copy this. Let's go back to App Gallery console, and here it says SHA256. Click Add, paste the fingerprint, and hit Save. You're supposed to add all the fingerprints for each key store, but if you look here into the store, it's all the same. So adding one fingerprint is sufficient because they're all literally the same. All right. Now with this step done, App Gallery will recognize the requests that we send from our app, and it will give access to our app. We're not going to receive any 403 unauthorized errors or anything. Okay, now let's go back to our app, and we are going to run the app for the first time. Let me connect my phone. I'm going to use a physical Huawei phone. It's already connected. And I have this Android plugin, which will mirror my device. So now what you see, this is my actual physical device, okay? It's not an emulator. And for you, if you do not have an emulator, if you don't have a physical device, I recommend using Huawei's cloud debugging platform. So you literally go to Google, search Huawei cloud debugging. And here, Huawei will give you access to devices inside of your browser or Android Studio. And these are real physical devices that are in Huawei, and you get to access them remotely and control them and test your app on them, and you will get logs in real time. So this is very useful if you do not have a physical device. Then let's go back to Android Studio, and let me go ahead and run the app. Let's hope it runs fine from the first attempt. Usually unlikely. Let's see how lucky we are. Yeah, that's going to take some time. So we are also going to add, we're going to add the button at the bottom right here. That's going to say sign out. So we give the user a chance to sign out. And then we're going to redirect them to the auth activity. Okay, now the build is complete. Now let's go ahead and install the app. Okay, now open the app and it is working fine. So let's start by signing in to our Huawei ID by clicking on the button. Should launch the authorization page. Perfect. Now we're gonna grant access to the app. So it's by default it's gonna have our profile, which is profile picture and the nickname. I'm gonna have access to our Huawei ID, which is a token, and then I'm gonna give it access to my email as well. This is sensitive information, so it requires users explicit consent. Also, it is optional, as you can see. The other two we cannot disable them, but for ID, the user has the option not to give you their ID. And if your app requires user's ID, then you have to code this into your app's logic. So whenever you receive the result, if there is no email, don't sign them in if your app requires that. Okay, I'm gonna click allow, and voila, it is working fine. So we have our profile picture, this is the handsome me, and then we have my email. This is my work email. Please do not send me spam messages. And here we have the token. You can send this token to your server if you have one, if you have a backend, so you can use it to request data from that side. Now we are pretty much done. We have successfully integrated Account Kit. I'm going to do one more thing, which is add a sign out button. I'm going to show you how to sign the user out and how to also cancel the authorization. Go back to the code. And I'm going to go to auth activity. I think I forgot one. Yep. So from here, if I try to navigate back, we go to this activity, which is wrong behavior. So first thing that we need to do is whenever we navigate to the profile activity, we have to finish the authorization because we no longer need it. So destroy this activity when the user presses the back button, they go back to the Android homepage, the launcher. Now here, we have two things to do. First, we have to update our UI, add a sign out button, and we have to update the code to sign the user out and send them back to the authorization page when they click on the sign out button. Here in the design, for the sign out button, we have to go with a simple one because Account Kit does not provide sign out button. Same for any kind of authorization method that you would use. I'm gonna give it an ID of sign out, and let's just say like so, like so. It does not need to look pretty. It's just demonstrating functionalities of Account Kit. I'm gonna say sign out from Huawei ID. Okay, sign is done. Go to the profile activity here in initialize UI. We're gonna add a new variable. I'm gonna call it sign out button. Find view by ID. I'm gonna cast this to an image. No, not an image. It's a button. The ID is r.id. Sign out. Simply, all we need to do is just set a click listener. We're going to listen to clicks whenever the user taps this button. We're going to execute a method that's called sign out from Huawei ID. I like to give my functions meaningful names. Sign out from Huawei ID. Now here, we have to do two things. First, we have to initialize Account Kit like we did in the first step, and then we have to sign the user out. So let's go back to the auth activity, and I'm going to literally copy this method. It is not recommended. It's better for you to take this code that you use to a separate class. So I'm going to copy the account service that we initialized here, and then we're going to use account service to log the user out. So in the sign out from Huawei ID method, you can simply say service, what is it? Account service dot sign out. This will return a task. It is an asynchronous operation or asynchronous operation. I'm gonna call the method add on complete listener, which will be executed whenever the operation of the sign out is done. Now here we can simply test if the task is successful. If so, we would simply show a toast that says see ya soon. And then we have to send them back to the auth activity. So I'm going to call the method start activity, pass in an intent. The first variable will be a context. The second one will be the activity class, which is auth activity class.java. And to ensure that the user cannot come back to this if they left swipe, they click back the back button. I'll finish to terminate this activity. Else, if the sign out is not successful for some reason, it's unlikely. I'm going to just show a toast that says, oops, sign out failed. Sign out, sign out. Voila. Yeah, so let's go ahead and test this code, and then we're going to come back and use another function that's called cancel authorization. I'm going to launch the app, bring my mirror device here. Okay, I have installed the app. I'm going to sign in with Huawei ID. Notice we did not get any authorization page. The app did not ask us to authorize, or HMS Core did not ask us to give your app authorization, because we've done that already. And that's where cancel authorization is good, where when you use it, the next time you try to sign the user in with their Huawei ID, they have to give your app authorization once again. And this is very good for their own privacy and security. You don't need to do that, but it's good practice. So here, if I click sign out, so we have been signed out and we are sent to the account kit. Now, if I sign in again, it's just going to go straight into the profile activity as you see. Now let's go ahead and implement the cancel authorization approach. So I'm going to call account service, and we're going to call method cancel authorization. So we're going to add a complete listener, add on complete listener, and simply wrap the whole code inside of that. That's all we need to do. Now let's go ahead and launch the app. You will see the difference. Again, sign out, sign in, no authorization, go straight, your app will receive the information. When you cancel the authorization, the user will need to reauthorize. So here, sign in with Huawei ID. This is the new version. We signed in successfully. Now let's sign out. What happened? The authorization got canceled. Now it should technically ask us for authorization. And now we have to authorize again and give the correct, or the scopes, the desirable scope. Click allow, and we are successfully signed in. So if your app is a business app, or I don't know, a game where the user does not need to sign in frequently, then it's better to cancel the authorization once they sign out. But if you find the user like sign in and sign out frequently, like if it's some sort of a banking app, or like, or every time the user opens the app, like they have to sign in, well, in that case, you may want to cancel the authorization once a month, or it's up to you, but it is optional, but it is good to protect users' privacy. With this, we arrive at the end of the coding section. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below, and I'm going to answer them by the end of this session. All right, next is, let's see if we have any questions in the live chat. And no, we have no questions so far. I guess we have to skip straight to the last part of this session. If you want to join AppSap 2022, please scan this QR code, and you can scan the red QR code to join our developer community. Here are some important links. You can email us, you can visit our website, and you can join our Facebook group using the links shown on screen. Thank you for joining us today, and we have another session on 25th of August, where I'm going to be introducing HUAWEI Push Kit. You will find the source code for the demo that we created in the comments down below. Thank you. Have a great day.